Censored. A boy enters school branded the criminal's brother before uttering a word. Acidic stares pierce his invisible skin. Viral whispers conspire against him in seconds. But behind it all, a silver-haired gardener readies the ultimate counterattack. A tattered handkerchief and a single look are the code for a silent revolution. Think flowers are just decoration? Wait until you see petals become weapons of hope. The clock fears no cruelty. Countdown to the impossible has begun. Alert! Hate messages scrawled on lockers announce a brutal power play. One misstep and you plummet, literally. He trains for this, moving with surgical precision. When the crowd laughs, only his silence threatens to explode. The burning question: who commands this backyard war room? Spoiler: the apron wearer carries a legacy of bloody marshes. Get ready to learn humility and strength are synonyms. If you think you've seen a fight, wait for the knockout blow. Clip leaked, tears in HD reach the pinnacle of humiliation. The world watches pain go viral in real time. He doesn't scream. He doesn't react. Every breath is a prayer. Every sigh, a strategy. Do you pity the villain or respect him? In seconds, the scales may tip. Victim becomes warrior. What looked like bullying becomes prelude to redemption. Hold your breath. Silence will speak louder than any scream. Breaking news. A punch of precision stops a fall in its tracks. The audience chokes on the unexpected. Weakness turns trophy in the blink of an eye. A clip of the scene? Instant call for justice online. But that's just the appetizer. The main course? A decades-old revelation hidden in faded photos. Grandma Gardner steps up as forgotten war hero. And bonus, flips the power dynamic in the principal's office. Hear this: principals and parents must swallow their own rules. Truth becomes tsunami, washing prejudice away. A ceremony morphs into a tribunal of remorse. Tears fall in rows. Applause shatters the silence. The invisible takes center stage as ultimate authority. The criminal label vanishes under belated justice. Each petal releases a manifesto of courage. If you doubted the power of the discreet, prepare to rethink everything. Ready to feel the weight of a redemption that explodes each chapter? Every scene accelerates your heartbeat, challenges your notion of strength. You'll witness the impossible become routine. Invisibility will be shattered in blinding light, and a simple rose will become symbol of resistance. If you think it ends here, you've got more to rethink about happy endings. The grand finale still awaits your play. Hit play and get ready to feel alive. But before listening to this exciting story, if you are not yet subscribed to our channel, subscribe now and become part of our community. Malik Rivers stepped through St. Martin's rusty gate, clutching his backpack like a shield. The shadows of the narrow hallway reached toward his shoulders like curious fingers. He felt the weight of every gaze, a silent mass of judgment. The cold floor echoed his hesitant steps and racing heart. A whisper slid through the rows of metal lockers behind him. The welcome sign seemed to mock the distrust on each face. Malik tightened his grip on the strap and drew a deep breath. The sting of an unfair label throbbed in his mind like a merciless reminder. Yet his eyes sought out Miss Gertrude's discreet figure in the distance. She stood there, silent and steadfast like a hidden promise. The murmurs rose like gusts of wind, cold and merciless. Malik heard his name whispered amid concealed laughter. Each syllable struck him like a silent blow. A tall boy shoved his shoulder, forcing him to stop. "Come here, bandit's brother," the harsh voice jeered. Malik averted his gaze and kept walking with steady steps. His silence reverberated in the spectators' souls. Above, the window's brightness cast sharp shadows across his back. At every locker, a new story of resilience seemed to begin. And he moved on, bearing invisible scars. The classroom radiated equal parts heat and tension. Malik sat in the last desk, isolated from the aligned seats. The teacher spoke of important dates, but no one heard over the hum of stairs. He held the notebook where he'd scribbled verses of hope. A pencil snap echoed in his ears. He recalled Gertrude's pre-dawn lessons in her garden. There, every movement had purpose. Every breath was a prayer. Here, the air grew heavy like lead in his throat. He remained still, hope for the future clenched in his chest. All the while, prejudice whispered that he should vanish. Their world shattered with the shrill ring announcing recess. Children flooded the halls with boisterous voices. Malik made his way to his locker, seeking refuge. The cold metal brushed his skin as he turned the knob. Inside, he found a message sprayed in jet black paint. The letters trembled like blades. "You'll end up just like your brother." His heart froze at the silent threat. He stepped back slowly, feeling breath slip away. A shiver ran down his spine, bringing both fear and controlled anger. Wordlessly, he left the locker gaping open and slipped away down the corridor. Miss Gertrude watched the scene from across the courtyard, her calm gaze concealed inner storms. She remembered the marshes of old when silence itself was a weapon. Each flower in the garden seemed to pulse with the rhythm of injustice. She clenched her weathered fists. Those same hands had once defended lives. A sigh broke the morning stillness. She knew Malik bore a promise yet to be fulfilled. Reaching into her pocket, she withdrew a worn handkerchief reserved for trials. Her body stayed motionless, but her heart had already planned the next move. In the corner of the courtyard, the wind carried echoes of cruel laughter. It swirled around the rose bushes like sharp reminders. Malik raised his eyes, seeking refuge in the vivid green leaves. Each petal exhaled a faint scent of hope. In silence, he tightened his hidden fist in his pocket. Gertrude's lessons of discipline coursed through his veins. He took a step and another rose fell at his feet. The dull thud of petals hitting stone felt like a signal, a call to stand firm, even when invisible. And he walked toward the school, Gertrude's promise echoing in his mind. Afternoon arrived with heavy clouds and palpable tension. The final bell rang, yet no one left without glancing back. Malik tucked away the notebook of transformative verses. Between cold concrete and secure gates, he found his strength. Miss Gertrude appeared beside him, as silent as a shadow. She offered him the handkerchief with a discreet nod. Malik extended his hand and gripped that fragment of history. Without a word, he understood he was not alone. The invisible scar began to pulse with hope. But the threat still lingered, unspoken in the air. At night, the empty hallway held secrets muffled by dim lights. A breeze slipped through the open window, scattering dry leaves. Malik approached the abandoned locker, as if seeking answers. His fingers grazed the menacing paint once more. He felt wounded courage, but unbroken. The surrounding silence became a muted scream. In his chest, Gertrude's promise flared like a gentle flame. He whispered to himself, "They haven't seen anything yet." Darkness enveloped him, carrying tension into the next day. The weight of a name that wasn't his challenged his faith again. Paragraph 1. The meeting room door clicked open, revealing chairs lined up and polished wooden tables. Parents adjusted ties and checked phones as the vice principal greeted them. Outside, Miss Gertrude clutched the straps of her dirt-stained gardening apron. The garden's flowers whispered consolation, but offered no passage through the halls. The vice principal's voice rang out, "This meeting is for guardians only." Gertrude lowered her gaze, eyes fixed on the frayed sleeve of her dress. A deep breath echoed in her chest like a silenced war drum. She tried to lift her head, but the tide of prejudice shoved her back. Each step felt like carrying tons of hope on her feet. As the door closed, a final look of reproach struck her like a blade. Inside, voices spoke of goals, statistics, and budgets. The vice principal's expression held a glacial, flawless smile. Gertrude felt heat rise to her cheeks but remained motionless. She clutched the handkerchief in her pocket, ready to intercede. The windows reflected white light that washed out her humanity. Inside, Malik waited, confused, holding the flower he'd picked. When the door burst open, he whispered, "Come, Grandma." She looked up at him, surprise and gratitude mingling. Their footsteps echoed in the corridor, but their hearts thundered louder. The flower trembled in his hand, messenger of silent support. Side by side, grandmother and grandson shared a moment of complicity. Malik pressed the flower against Gertrude's chest like a sacred shield. She tilted her head and whispered, "They'll see you for who you are." Her voice chimed like an ancient bell, heralding promises. Behind closed doors, distant laughs mingled with hollow speeches. Gertrude felt the weight of silence transform into strength. Her wrinkled fingers touched the bloom as if it were a relic. Malik drew in a slow, steady breath and squared his shoulders. He said nothing, but conviction gleamed in his eyes. A sharp cut in time, dividing what came before from what would follow. The vice principal noticed their presence and frowned. "He doesn't have signed permission," she hissed, scrutinizing Gertrude's attire. The gardener wiped her hands on the cloth with quiet dignity. "Permissions don't plant flowers or water hopes," she murmured. The words echoed in Malik's mind, awakening dormant pride. The entire room fell silent, stunned by her gentle defiance. The vice principal opened her mouth, then turned away in ire. A click of heels marked her exit, leaving tension in her wake. Gertrude stood firm, a silver strand dancing in the breeze. Malik grasped her arm, prepared to shield her with silent loyalty. Outside, the sun began its descent behind the ancient fig tree. The flowers seemed to murmur a discreet victory. Gertrude placed a hand on her grandson's shoulder in a silent gesture of care. Her heart thundered with memories of past battles. Malik felt his pulse quicken, inheriting that fierce courage. Their steps were slow but laden with significance. The vice principal watched from the window, curiosity piqued. A soft breeze carried the scent of lavender and promise. Gertrude turned and declared, "They will know my name." Malik smiled, inwardly feeling the transformation take root. Arriving in the garden, each flower greeted their triumphant return. The white camellia petals blossomed in secret applause. Gertrude knelt among the lavender and began to water with calm resolve. Malik watched, mindful of every ceremonial gesture. The water sparkled in the last sunlight, refracting hope. She handed the flower back to him as a symbol of alliance. "Remember, not every closed door is the end of the path." He tucked the bloom against his chest, a living promise of victory. The garden's silence became of resistance. Yet the night still threatened storms before calm. When lanterns lit the gate, the world seemed on vigil. Malik followed Gertrude along the well-worn dirt paths. A distant dog's howl accompanied their steps. At the old house, floral curtains swayed in the breeze. Black and white photographs watched their triumphant return. Gertrude placed the flower in a simple vase on the table. Malik eyed the worn Bible as if seeking strength there. She smiled, tired yet undefeated in her silent faith. "The fight isn't over, it's just changed fields," she whispered. Malik's heart beat in silent salute. In the darkness of his room, the sheet fluttered with steady breaths. Malik held the flower against his pillow, safeguarding its courage. Outside, the wind rustled the tree in the backyard. He rose and left a note on the desk. "They will see." Gertrude, in the shadows, reached for the handkerchief. She recalled marches and screams stifled by repression. Yet here were whispers of change in the air. The clock marked the exact moment the promise was made. Silence reigned, heavy with unresolved tension. The next battle awaited the dawn. The bathroom corridor reverberated with the click of the latch and the hum of fluorescent lights. Malik stepped in slowly, as though he already knew no one would leave him alone. The cold tile reflected his troubled face as he locked the door. A rhythmic drip from the plumbing served as the soundtrack to his anguish. Each breath felt like carrying tons of weight in his chest. He approached the sink, hands trembling on the cold marble. The mirror returned the image of a boy invisible to cruel eyes. Tears slipped down unbidden, like rain on the pane of his world. In silence, he let the pain form in droplets. But the open wound concealed a silent strength, about to burst. Little did Malik know each sob was captured in merciless pixels. A group of students, hidden behind a shower stall, filmed every motion. Their muffled laughter carried the poison of gratuitous cruelty. He didn't notice the red recording light blinking without mercy. On the phone screen, the caption was already ready: "The weakest boy in school." The video hit their stories in seconds, spreading shame like wildfire. Malik lifted his gaze, feeling the world shrink around him. A shiver ran down his spine, warning that the storm was near. Yet his lips remained sealed, honoring Gertrude's ancient promise. He turned and walked away, leaving echoes and humiliation behind. During the next break, phones circulated hand to hand, screens gleaming in curious faces. Malik trudged the corridor, each step marked by public shame. The video replayed in every viewfinder, the image of the boy in tears. He felt the weight of classmates' silence, like predators circling. The invisible scar throbbed with every whispered taunt. He maintained an upright posture, refusing any impulsive reaction. Pain coursed through unseen veins, but he'd learned not to respond in anger. He rounded the corner and entered the empty playground, seeking open-air relief. A light breeze brushed his face, reminding him of disciplined calm. In the air, a whispered call. "They think they broke me. They've yet to see who I am." In the back, under a wire fence's shadow, Gertrude waited silently. Her eyes mirrored others' pain as a beacon of hope. She asked no questions. She knew each facet of this suffering. Her weathered hands caressed the soil beside a blooming rose. A silent gesture of solace, needing no words. Malik approached and placed the phone on a rusty bench. The recording light still blinked on the forgotten screen. Gertrude sensed the moment called for rebuilding, not retaliation. She offered her handkerchief once more, a symbol of rebirth. He took the cloth, feeling familiar courage awaken. The late afternoon sun cast golden rays over lavender blooms. Each flower seemed to pulse with the promise of a different tomorrow. Gertrude murmured, exposed pain, imminent transformation. Malik closed his eyes, absorbing each syllable like a prayer. The wind carried his breath up the fence line. Behind them, cruel voices faded before patient strength. He felt fear's weight dissolve into silent hope. A deep hush settled over the garden like a tomb for the past. Malik lifted his head, discovering renewed breath. The twist of fate was germinating there among compassion's roots. The first thunderclaps rolled in the distance. Fine drops began to dance through the humid air. Gertrude extended her arm, letting the rain wet her hands. Malik watched storm clouds' reflection in the puddles. It was as if the sky wept with him, washing away shame. The scent of wet earth stirred memories of resistance. A distant rumble sounded like applause from ancestral warriors. They stood still, sharing burden and liberation alike. The storm wouldn't erase scars, but would nourish new strengths. Silence between them sealed the pact of transformation. When the rain eased, a shy rainbow arched over the garden. The wet flowers gleamed like tiny beacons of light. Gertrude smiled with the sweetness of one who recognizes fulfilled promise. Malik felt courage vibrate in his fingertips. He walked toward the school entrance, ready to face tomorrow. Drops clinging to Gertrude's apron symbolized rebirth. She murmured, "Too much silence before explosion. Now explode in hope." Malik nodded, determination burning in his gaze. Down the corridor, curious eyes were already clearing out. And the next shadow of judgment awaited the next dawn. Later, a teacher crossed the courtyard and quietly remarked, "That boy has something strange. Too much silence." Always before. They explode. Malik heard it but stood firm, defying the hidden prophecy. The words echoed within, igniting the flame of transformation. He looked at Gertrude, who offered a tranquil smile. Their shared silent pact reverberated with renewed strength. The video's humiliation became a reminder of contained power. The garden waited patiently for the next act. And Malik, in his soul, felt ready finally to be seen. Silence was no longer a gag but the prelude to revelation. The school field trip through the historic city building sounded thrilling in the brochure, but tension simmered among the students. Malik walked in silence, eyes fixed on the worn stone floor beneath weathered shoes. Chad's clique hurled snide jokes and disdainful glances like sharpened stones. Sunlight filtered through windows, throwing flickering patterns on the stone stairs. With dramatic flair, Chad pretended to slip, feigning imminent peril. Laughter erupted like a storm behind him. Chad flung an arm out, seeking balance. In everyone's eyes, Malik lifted his gaze, stomach twisting with anticipation of chaos. He recalled pre-dawn sessions in Gertrude's garden, where his body learned precision. But no one knew every muscle fiber was forged by silent discipline. The stone floor gleamed at the exact moment Chad truly lost his footing. Laughter turned to a startled shriek as his body tipped toward a fatal drop. Malik moved in a reflex that bent time, a lateral step, arms snapping out. His fingers wrapped around Chad's wrist with unerring grip. Chad's body hovered inches above the last dangerous step. The entire group froze, stunned by his precise intervention. A collective gasp echoed. How did he? Malik's face remained impassive, grim in his calm. A suspended moment, like a paused film on its pivotal frame. Then he released Chad, who collapsed on his knees, breathless. Chad lifted his head, eyes brimming with unexpected humiliation. "Why did you do that?" he stammered, voice shaking with confusion. Malik straightened his stance, arms relaxed at his sides. "He was going to get hurt," he replied with near indifference. The clarity of his statement sliced the silence like a blade. Classmates exchanged looks, reevaluating the boy they'd underestimated. Sunlight glinted on Malik's sweat-damp forehead. A lone bird's chirp shattered the silence with a sharp note. No one moved for several beats, caught by the impact of his deed. Malik turned and walked on, leaving questions swirling in his wake. The vice principal, trailing at a distance, sprinted forward in alarm. "Boy, come here immediately," she commanded, face etched with concern. Malik paused, inhaled deeply, and walked back to the group. Chad, still kneeling, murmured something unintelligible. Gertrude, watching from afar, felt her heart clench. She stepped forward quietly, recalling every fall she'd ever prevented. The crowd parted, forming a circle of curious dread. The vice principal measured Malik with wary eyes, hands trembling. Every flower in Gertrude's garden seemed to pulse in her chest. An unspoken fury crackled in the air, foreshadowing the coming storm. They filed into the teacher's office for an incident report. Malik stood tall and calm, eyes fixed on the ink-stained floor. Chad rose reluctantly, avoiding the metaphorical blood on his pride. The vice principal asked rote questions, unaware of the deeper truth. Malik answered with few words, each syllable heavy with purpose. "I did what needed to be done," he stated, voice steady as aged wood. A teacher hesitated before penning. The words perplexed. Word of the incident would spread like slow-burning fire. In silence, Malik absorbed the power his act contained. Yet the twist still held surprises for the upcoming scenes. Back in the garden, Malik found Gertrude kneeling among the roses. Her face turned serious at the sight of his tense posture. Without fanfare, she brushed the back of his neck, a timeless gesture of comfort. "You moved like someone who knows the true value of life," she whispered. Malik lowered his eyes, touching the handkerchief she offered. The lavender scent orchestrated a symphony of courage and pain. He inhaled deeply, feeling himself part of something greater. The world of schoolyard predators seemed to shrink, yet judgment's shadow loomed on the horizon. Gertrude knew she must reveal parts of her past to shield him. That night, beneath the floral canopy of her home, Gertrude lit the old oil lamp. Malik watched the flickering glow dance across the worn Bible. She flipped through yellowed pages until she found an old photograph. There she was, young and fierce, in a makeshift gym teaching women self-defense. The caption read, "Chief Instructor, Women's Defense, 1975. Malik studied the determined lines of her youthful face. Her time-marked hands seemed to leap from the photo into the present. He realized the strength guiding him had roots deep in history. Gertrude closed the book tenderly and met his gaze. "Tomorrow they'll uncover another layer of this story," she warned. Malik lay in bed, mind swirling with memories and expectations. Shadows danced on the walls, orchestrated by night's breath. He repeated Gertrude's words, "You know the value of life." A soft smile lifted his lips as exhaustion enveloped him. The promise of revelations loomed like an approaching storm. On his pillow rested the handkerchief banner of courage. The silence before sleep pulsed with revolutionary potential. Malik closed his eyes, braced for the defining dawn. The stone staircase carried memories crying out for justice, and the invisible journey solidified in the boy's soul. Before the sun broke the horizon, Malik was already stepping into the packed earth backyard of Gertrude's home. Soft gloom wrapped the garden's blooms, still slumbering in the dew. He wore light clothes and worn sneakers, ready for each silent lesson. Miss Gertrude stood on the makeshift mat, immersed in concentration. The morning's cold air carried the damp scent of lavender and turned earth. A lone bird greeted the ritual's start with a timid song. Malik inhaled deeply, aligning mind and body in a single motion. Gertrude's weathered hands rose in a discreet blessing. He memorized every move, not strength, but precision and absolute control. There, in utter silence, a promise of transformation bloomed. The first punches sliced the air with the dry crack of discipline. Gertrude adjusted his stance and angle with a voice soft yet firm. Malik felt each muscle fiber awaken in perfect synchrony. The rhythm was more cadence than combat, prayer in motion. Each heartbeat marked the tempo of the morning lesson. He learned to channel fear into pure focus, like a guided spear. The wind whispered through the leaves, a silent witness. When his fists struck the sandbag, they echoed with determination. "Never strike first," Gertrude repeated between breaths. "And always pray before seeking victory." A shaft of light pierced low clouds, illuminating Malik's face. He closed his eyes briefly, feeling warmth and promise. The surrounding scene with roses and aromatic herbs felt like an altar of faith. Gertrude watched, eyes glistening with serene pride. Malik turned and knelt briefly, hands clasped in silent prayer. Each whispered devotion served as armor against the outside world. When he rose, silence conferred reverence on the act. Dewdrops sparkled on the improvised mat. He felt transformation pulse along his spine, and he kept that silence as a divine shield. After the kicking sequence, Gertrude handed him a fresh handkerchief. Malik wiped sweat from his brow, mingling it with lavender scent. "Discipline and faith," she said, "are sisters on courage's path." He nodded, tucking the phrase deep into his soul. The backyard fell hushed, as if the world waited. Gertrude placed a hand on his shoulder, a bond sealed in quiet. Malik glanced at the nearby blooms. Each petal seemed to cradle a fragment of hope. He realized this garden served as both sanctuary and trench. and he vowed to cultivate unseen strengths before emerging. That dawn, the horizon blushed pink. Daybreak brought warm breezes and promise of change. Malik folded his GI in silence, heart pounding steadily. Gertrude gathered her garden tools, ready for the day ahead. She looked at her grandson and said, "Soon the world will know what you did." Malik smiled, aware the vice principal already murmured about his training. The roses around them swayed, applauding discreetly. The simple yard revealed itself as stage for silent revolution. Malik headed toward school, soul aligned and gaze firm. Yet the alarm of the complaint sounded in the shadows, an imminent omen. Upon arrival, the vice principal waited at the gate, tension lining her face. She held an official-looking paper stamped with the school seal. "We received a complaint. You have been learning fighting from the gardener?" Malik regarded the document, calm under lifted brows. Students' voices clambered beyond the gates, brimming with curiosity. Gertrude appeared behind them, silent and solid as a rock. "She's teaching me control, not violence," he replied without flinch. The vice principal read those words, frowning. "That's not allowed during school hours." Malik smiled inwardly. The next move would be his. In the principal's office, the paper lay on the cold desk. The principal looked up, seeing Malik and Gertrude side by side. "This could pose a risk to student safety," he intoned. Gertrude exchanged a knowing glance with her grandson. "Greater risk is judging without knowing," she countered softly. Malik maintained silence, his stare speaking of subtle defiance. The principal remained steeped in indecision. Outside, a group of parents gathered, barred from entry. Tension thickened, signaling an inevitable clash. Malik felt the internal flame surge, ready for the impending confrontation. As they exited, the sky darkened with storm clouds, a coming tempest. Malik tucked the handkerchief into his pocket, scent of earth and faith intact. Gertrude rested a steady hand on his shoulder, protective and strong. The backyard of dirt lay distant now but pulsed in memory. He gazed at the school building, soon to see him in a new light. "They'll try to stop me," he whispered. She answered, "And you're ready to be seen." The wind billowed, scattering petals from their joined hands. Silent transformation turned fear into living courage. And the next chapter beckoned from the distant rumble of thunder. Asterisk, asterisk. The morning began with malice-laden whispers in St. Martin's halls. An influential clique, led by Chloe, gathered near the cafeteria. Chloe, a politician's daughter, wore status like armor. She discreetly pointed out Malik, who approached with measured steps. A phone appeared in accomplice's hands, screen gleaming with intent. The silent plan took shape, exposed the disciplined boy. Every curious glance became an emotional trap. Malik sensed the tension but kept his posture relaxed, gaze low. The trap tightened as muffled laughter echoed. And Gertrude's garden, his refuge, felt miles away. In the cafeteria, trays clinked and voices clamored in cruelty. Chloe deliberately ladled hot sauce onto Malik's tray. The scalding liquid dripped, staining his uniform and burning his skin. A muffled cry slipped from his throat, lost in the surrounding clamor. Onlookers recoiled, eyes widened by the staged spectacle. The phone captured every drop, every pained expression. Malik lowered his gaze and clenched his fist discreetly. He inhaled steadily, inner discipline stifling reaction. Chloe's sadistic smile signaled a hollow victory. But behind her grin, doubt began to take root. A cautious teacher approached and offered napkins. "Are you okay?" she asked, voice trembling. Malik ignored the gesture, retrieving his own handkerchief. He wiped his face calmly, absorbing the humiliation. Everyone leaned in, expecting his fury to erupt. Yet his eyes remained tranquil, shining with control. The hush amid chaos pulsed like a contained warning. He stepped back and receded, preserving dignity. Chloe furrowed her brow at the absence of aggression. Malik turned toward the window, glimpsing freedom beyond. In the courtyard, wind carried fragments of cruel whispers. Malik walked toward the chain-link fence, seeking fresh air. Gertrude watched from afar, beckoning him with a wave. He lifted his chin and strode confidently to her side. Chloe's clique trailed behind, curiosity morphing into pursuit. Phones recorded every step, ready to capture any misstep. Gertrude handed him the cloth, tender contrast to cruelty. Malik gripped the handkerchief and inhaled deeply. Tension mounted like storm clouds ready to burst. But he knew impulsive reaction would be the final trap. Gertrude led him to a sheltered corner of the garden. Damp petals surrounded them like protective shields. "Hunters hunt," she murmured, eyes steadfast. Malik closed his eyes, repeating, "Control is my weapon." Lavender's scent enveloped them in silent embrace. Chloe approached, feigning concern. "Are you all right?" Malik's face stayed impassive. He only shook his head. Doubt sprouted in Chloe's gaze like bitter seed. Gertrude's gentle touch on his shoulders signaled confidence. Malik opened his eyes, ready for the calculated next move. The vice principal arrived, drawn by rumors of commotion. "Malik, please come with me," she ordered authoritatively. He inclined his torso respectfully and complied. Gertrude remained behind, vigilant and silent. Chloe's clique dispersed, eyes fixed on potential fallout. The empty corridor marked the shift from hunt to judgment. Malik walked on without hesitation, steps deliberate. The vice principal gripped his arm, brief, cold contact. She turned and led him, leaving footprints of authority. Malik stared at the low ceiling, recalling dawn training. In the principal's office, chairs awaited confession or accusation. Chloe and her cronies arrived in theatrical disarray. "They recorded everything," announced a student like a showman. The vice principal examined the footage on the phone. Malik stood tall, arms at his sides, leaving no pretext. She searched his eyes for contradiction, but found only serenity honed by morning discipline. Gertrude turned in the half-open door, silent support. Tension peaked, poised for the verdict's release. Malik breathed in, ready to unveil his contained strength. The vice principal exhaled before speaking. "We find no grounds to discipline you," she admitted reluctantly. Chloe's whispers turned to murmurs of disbelief. Malik smiled inwardly, control having bested the trap. Gertrude entered the room, eyes glistening, posture proud. She gripped her grandson's hand in silent pride. Outside, Malik's reputation began its radical shift. The hunt was over, but another duel had only begun. Gertrude's garden awaited his triumphant return. And on the horizon, the next challenge formed in distant shadows. In the makeshift editor's room, monitors flickered with old and new clips. The ex-student turned documentarian sifted through archives for forgotten tales. An anonymous email arrived with an attachment, Chloe's ambush video. His eyes traced Malik's fluid motion rescuing Chad from a fall. The pattern echoed a black and white scene he'd seen decades ago. A faded timestamp glowed at the file's footer. Women's Defense, 1975. He frowned, recalling the elderly instructor who'd secretly trained him. A vintage photo appeared on the second screen, showing the young teacher. The documentarian held his chin, sensing a breakthrough discovery. He knew this was the bridge between a hidden heroic past and the present. Meanwhile at St. Martin, rumors of Malik's hidden strength swelled. Chloe panicked, scrambling to delete the viral video. Students raced to show the footage to teachers and classmates. The vice principal struggled to contain the uproar. But it was too late. Malik, unaware of the chaos, trained with Gertrude in the morning garden. She sensed the frenzy and signaled him to stay composed. Tension hovered like storm clouds over the floral oasis. Each tap on a phone felt like a drumbeat heralding the storm. Yet that morning, the garden became the epicenter of revelation. Gertrude knew it was time to return to the school stage. The documentarian scheduled a formal school interview. He entered the building with a thick folder of proofs and images. In the principal's office, Malik and Gertrude awaited alongside silent allies. Parents peeked down open corridors. Curiosity piqued. The documentarian screened the unedited clip, no captions needed. Gertrude's hands trembled slightly as they rested on the table. Malik stood firm, feeling the weight of history around him. The screen projected precise movement legacy of a pioneering instructor. In the hush, each frame screamed for justice. And a reversal was born, uniting generations under a hidden legacy. The principal broke the silence. "Who is she?" he asked. Gertrude lifted her chin with dignity, revealing a faint scar on her brow. "I'm the one who always taught women to fight for dignity," she replied. Behind her, old photos flashed, Marcia's class's resistance. Parents and teachers muttered contrite apologies like honed blades. Malik looked at his grandmother with awe, recognizing his soul mentor. The documentarian recorded every reaction, crafting a new testimony. The vice principal, cornered, kept her gaze averted before that moral authority. The video formed a bridge linking pain and redemption across time. The school stage transformed into an altar of belated justice. That very day, an official memo circulated to the entire community. It unveiled Gertrude's past as chief instructor of women's defense. It listed accolades, honors, and hundreds of trained women. Malik bore the honor of carrying that legacy in his poised stance. The school's social platforms flooded with messages of support. Chloe, tongue-tied, avoided meeting Malik's eyes. The vice principal arranged a reparative meeting to correct wrongs. Parents demanded recognition for the invisible hero. St. Martin's Garden became a symbol of resistance and healing. And the reversal solidified. The invisible had become light. At home, Gertrude thumbed through her worn Bible to find an annotation. "Those who trust in the Lord renew their strength," she whispered. Malik entered, eyes brimming with heartfelt gratitude. He knelt before her, emotion welling in his voice. "You taught me to fight in silence," he said, voice quivering. Gertrude stroked his hair, smiling with tender pride. The 1975 training photo gleamed from the old shelf. He vowed to carry that faith and courage wherever he went. Their shared silence resonated with transformative power. The link between heroic past and vibrant present pulsed stronger than ever. The next day, Aaron, an ex-student turned journalist, published a feature. The headline proclaimed, "The Invisible Gardener Who Saved a Boy from Prejudice." Video clips and vintage photos intertwined on the digital page. Comments poured in. "Inspiring. What an example. So moving." Parents shared links. Hesitant students offered discreet applause. Invisible gained a new connotation of power. School bulletin boards displayed Gertrude's quotes as honor rolls. Malik felt the ripple of change echo through every hallway. Chloe, isolated, clutched her phone, remorse in her tears. And the final chapter beckoned, demanding ultimate redemption. By nightfall, the school staged a ceremony in the main auditorium. A giant screen projected testimonials from Gertrude's former students. The audience rose in unison, warm applause and heartfelt tears. Malik stepped onto the stage and reached for his grandmother's hand. "She's steady and proud," revealed, the face shaped by her legacy. The crowd cheered, chanting "Thank you" in emotional chorus. Chloe remained seated in the last row, unable to move. Vows of justice and redemption resonated against marble pillars. In that moment, the invisible shone brighter than any spotlight. And the next act loomed, the epilogue where silence finally became voice. The school then sat in darkness until the projector's glow lit the stage. Rows of chairs reflected the administration's nervous anticipation. Parents and teachers murmured, bracing for upheaval. Malik and Gertrude sat side by side, like general and soldier. Chloe's image flickered in their peripheral vision. The documentarian readied his mic, poised to reveal the footage. A heavy hush settled over the crowd, almost tangible. Projected light threw dancing shadows across concrete walls. Every face in the audience appeared tense, awaiting the storm. And up on stage, truth prepared to shatter walls of silence. The video rolled, showing Gertrude in historic civil rights marches. Black and white frames trembled with emotional gravitas. Parents recalled untold stories of long-ago struggles. Murmurs rose. She was an instructor? Malik's gaze stayed steady, absorbing each reaction. The vice principal's eyes widened, mingling surprise and guilt. The documentarian transitioned to Malik's rescue of Chad. Nervous laughter died in the wake of his precise intervention. Some in the audience raised phones to record again. And truth began corroding the powerful's pedestal. Influential teachers exchanged uneasy glances. The principal beside the documentarian slumped out of formal posture. The beat of anxious hearts filled the void. Gertrude inhaled deeply, displaying her scar with ease. She rose and declared, "I defended lives when no one dared." The audience fell silent, gripped by her moral authority. Proud parents wiped away tears of emotion. Malik's chest swelled with pride at her side. Chloe slumped forward, unable to hold her head high. And the stage became an arena of long overdue reparation. The vice principal tried to interject but lacked conviction. "We must make amends for this school's wrongs," urged Gertrude. Malik nodded, his silent reverence bolstering her words. Teachers scribbled names for future honors. A murmur of approval swelled into reserved applause. Chloe's isolated figure mirrored regret and fear. The principal's eyes glistened with remorse. He took the microphone and announced policy changes. Invisible echoed anew, now emblematic of strength. And in that moment, justice's scales tipped right. Outside the auditorium, empty halls reverberated with echoes of applause. Malik and Gertrude walked slowly, hands entwined in silence. The sign, planted in faith, watered in silence, held renewed meaning. They passed Gertrude's classroom, where the training mat waited. Each step seemed lined with petals of recognition. Parents smiled as they passed, admiring their courage. Chloe peeked from a doorway, then looked away in shame. A breeze rustled in through open windows, carrying victory's whisper. Malik brushed away a tear before it fell. And the floral oasis became cradle of reborn dreams. That afternoon, the vice principal led a symbolic rose planting. Gertrude grasped the shovel with steady hands, a quiet smile forming. Malik helped position the sapling's shared legacy in action. Parents and teachers formed a circle of solidarity. Chloe approached, offering a seedling an apology. Gertrude accepted with grace, teaching forgiveness without words. The sun shone brightly, illuminating collective renewal. The garden bloomed anew, symbols of living hope. Malik turned to thank those who joined in reparation. And the once divided school blossomed united by truth's power. At day's end, Gertrude and Malik settled on a wooden bench. They watched newly planted flowers sway in the breeze. Their fragrance enveloped them in a victorious embrace. Malik rested his head on her shoulder, exhausted but joyful. She stroked his hair, serene pride etched in her features. "Now your name walks beside my legacy," Gertrude whispered. Malik smiled, feeling the promise of being seen fulfilled. Twilight bathed the garden in golden light. Silence spoke louder than any words, yet the story wasn't over. One final act awaited. When the moon rose, mirrored in white petals, an invitation arrived. The principal requested a closing speech. Malik closed his eyes and inhaled deeply, memories rushing in. Gertrude squeezed his hand, unwavering support. He climbed the stage one last time, gaze bright with resolve. The hushed audience awaited, tension transformed into expectation. Malik lifted the microphone, voice tempered like steel. You've seen me for who I am, and now I see the strength within me." A thunderous ovation erupted, dissolving all lingering shadows. And so closed the penultimate chapter of this redemption journey. Asterisk, asterisk. The school gym throbbed with bright lights and palpable anticipation. The year-end event gathered students, parents, and staff in a grand circle. Malik was called to the stage to receive an Exemplary Resilience Award. The microphone glittered under the spotlight as his name was announced solemnly. He ascended the steps with serene posture, each footstep echoing in the stands. The audience watched him, some beaming with pride, others wide-eyed in wonder. The vice principal handed him the certificate and awaited polite applause. Malik gripped the paper. The silence was louder than any celebration. The weight of the moment burned in his chest, a promise of a decisive instant. Then, with calm resolve, he placed the certificate on the floor. A ripple of murmurs swept the gym like a wave ready to break. Malik turned to Gertrude, kneeling before her in reverent homage. His eyes met hers, seas of understanding and triumph. From his waist, he produced a black belt embroidered with his name in gold. Every stitch spoke of nights of discipline and silent prayer. Spots of light danced across the fabric, capturing restrained tears. Silence enveloped the space, eclipsing any music or confetti. He raised the belt with both hands, offering it to its weaver. Gertrude laid her time-worn hand on his shoulder. The scene blazed with intensity, revealing the true tribute. The crowd held its breath, witness to a ritual unexpected. Parents wept, teachers whispered in awe. Chloe slumped in the back row, unable to voice reproach. The principal stood, diverting his gaze under the weight of justice. Malik whispered, "Without you, none of this would exist." Gertrude bowed her head, replying, "You were always visible to me." A beam of projector light illuminated the stories etched in her wrinkles. The black belt became a symbol of legacy and liberation. In every eye, genuine recognition blossomed. And the silence that once bound him shattered into applause. Applause erupted, breaking the chains of prejudice. Malik rose, simple attire transforming him into monarch of his destiny. Gertrude stepped onto the stage, hand in hand, equals at last. The audience stood as one, vibrating with collective gratitude. Parents applauded through tears, a future rewritten. Teachers embraced colleagues, renewal in every hug. Chloe averted her eyes, cradling late regret. Malik held the belt aloft, a gesture of shared triumph. Last night's silence transmuted into a chorus of cheers. And there on stage, the invisible found voice and light. After the ceremony, halls buzzed with heartfelt conversations. Students approached Malik, thanking him for their inspiration. He smiled humbly, belt still in hand. Gertrude accompanied him, living testament at his side. "I promised you'd be seen," she murmured softly. Malik replied, "You taught me to stand in silence." Every word sealed their bond across time. St. Martin's Garden beckoned for another celebration. Night-blooming flowers swayed, echoing full victory. Yet the final denouement awaited its moment of glory. In the courtyard under moonlight, a lone screen flickered on. The untold video began without warning. Clip after clip showed Gertrude's fights, Malik's drills, the rescue. Students formed a circle, awe and admiration in their eyes. The vice principal approached, tears glistening in silence. Malik sat on the ground, belt in hand, absorbing the full story. Gertrude stood proud as images resurrected her legacy. Truth surged forth, flooding every face with reverence. Chloe hid her face, unable to face another's redemption. And the courtyard became an altar of belated vindication. When the video ended, a unified chorus rose in a hymn of hope. Parents, students, and teachers raised hands in collective embrace. Malik and Gertrude embraced. Silence is louder than words. The moon bore witness to courage and legacy reunited. Stars shone with conspiratorial intensity above them. The screen went dark, but the light within remained ablaze. Parents offered flowers to the gardener. No one anticipated such concentrated emotion in one moment. Silence finally made way for the voice that deserved to be heard. And the next awakening heralded a new era for St. Martin. As they departed, Malik raised the microphone once more. Silence is not weakness. It is preparation for the right moment. The crowd absorbed the lesson, hearts opened wide. Gertrude squeezed his arm, mission fulfilled. "This is only the beginning," he declared, eyes fixed on tomorrow. The school bell rang loud, symbolizing a fresh chapter. Parents embraced, tears of hope and unity. Malik placed the belt over his heart, silent vow intact. St. Martin's halls echoed with promises of lasting change. And the redemption journey reached its apex before the final curtain. Dawn broke over the courtyard, bathing it in golden light. Malik and Gertrude arrived together at the center of a circle formed by the entire community. A screen still pulsed with the final image of the video, now part of their living history. Parents, students, and teachers waited in silence, hearts open and eyes attentive. Chloe stood nearby, face contrite, remorse visible in her trembling hands. The principal lifted the microphone, voice thick with contained emotion. A ripple of anticipation swept through the crowd like an early breeze. Then came a profound pause demanding everyone's full attention. The promise of a true conclusion hovered like a gentle breath. And finally, Malik was invited to speak. He inhaled deeply, feeling Gertrude's steady hand on his arm. His gaze swept over every face, absorbing the collective reconciliation. "They called her invisible for decades," he began, voice steady. "But she taught me that those who plant faith reap courage." Reverent silence followed each sentence, echoing in every chest. He raised the black belt aloft, symbol of struggle and redemption. "Today we all see each other," he declared with conviction. Tears glistened in Gertrude's eyes as smiles blossomed around them. His words spread like seeds carried on. The wind and the courtyard brimmed with renewed hope. The vice principal and the director, standing side by side, were moved by the transformation. "This school has learned a lesson far beyond rules," she admitted. Malik nodded respectfully, acknowledging her humility. Parents applauded, uniting in wholehearted support. Teachers held up signs quoting Gertrude, "Strength is silence." The boy's speech became the anthem of change. In every face, the reflection of a society evolving. Chloe lifted her eyes, dabbing tears of late regret. Gertrude smiled, seeing the seed of courage take root in the young girl's heart, and the cycle of healing reached its human apex. The principal invited Gertrude to the microphone in pure reverence. "You saved lives, shaped hearts, and now you save our collective soul." She spoke calmly. "Every flower needs care and respect." The screen projected garden scenes, flowers blooming after tears had watered them. Parents and students chanted the mantra in unison, "Plant faith, reap courage." Malik embraced his grandmother, a gesture of gratitude speaking for them both. The community stood transformed by the gardener's example. The weight of the past became the driving force for the future, and the bleachers resonated with applause that seemed to embrace the world. There, the invisible became the guide of a new era. At the end, the principal announced a new room in Gertrude's honor. "It will be called the Room of Faith and Courage," he declared, voice thick with emotion. Malik gripped his grandmother's shoulder, moved by the tribute. Gertrude discreetly wiped tears of gratitude from her cheek. Parents took photos, immortalizing this moment of redemption. Chloe approached, handing her a heartfelt apology card. "Please forgive me, and thank you for showing me the way," she whispered. Gertrude smiled, replying, "Forgiveness is the final victory." A collective embrace celebrated the power of new beginnings, and the final chapter closed with renewed hearts. In the ensuing silence, a gentle wind scattered petals around them. Malik and Gertrude walked hand in hand down the main hallway. The sign, planted in faith, watered in silence, shone in daylight. The garden lay behind them, yet its legacy bloomed in every gaze. Parents spoke of justice, empathy, and social transformation. Teachers shared plans for fresh, welcoming practices. Students hummed soft choruses of collective hope. Chloe watched in silence, now part of the redemption story. The campus seemed to breathe a sigh of relief, its future open like a field in bloom. And the promise of standing tall gained wings. At dusk, Gertrude and Malik returned to their secret garden. They watered the new saplings, each drop a prayer of gratitude. The freshly planted flowers gleamed in the twilight. Malik whispered, "We still must care for the world outside." She nodded. Silence is now a voice for those who need it. The rising moon witnessed their renewed mission. The scent of herbs and blooms cradled their pact of courage. They knew this victory was only the beginning. Garden and school beat as one in hope's rhythm. And the redemption story found a new chapter with each dawn. When night fell, stars appeared like sparks of promise. Malik offered Gertrude the black belt, now nameless, universal. "For you, guardian of invisible courage," he said with emotion. She accepted the symbol with tears and serene smile. The final silence was crowned by the gentle chorus of crickets. Parents and students, gathered in the courtyard, watched in reverence. The wind whispered secrets of faith, pain, and redemption. The invisible journey transcended into a visible legacy. And standing tall, they sealed their vow never to be silenced again. Thus ends the saga, but the echo of its lesson will resound forever. At the end of this journey, we see that true courage is born in silence, far from the spotlights. Malik learned that an invisible scar can become a banner of dignity. Gertrude showed that wisdom accumulated over decades blooms in simple gestures. The school, once a stage for prejudice, transformed into a sanctuary of empathy. Every planted flower became a metaphor for collective rebirth. Exposed pain served as the foundation for a deeply rooted hope. Together, they teach us that genuine transformation requires patience and faith. This chapter celebrates the power of standing tall, even when everything tries to bring us down. What lessons do you take from this story of redemption and belated justice? Could there be scratched lockers and unfair labels in your own life waiting to be healed? Perhaps your secret garden also holds lessons of courage to be uncovered. What would happen if you watered your scars with the same tenderness used to nurture flowers? Gertrude's promise, "They will see you," echoes within each of us. Do we accept the invitation to look beyond appearances? This narrative challenges us to recognize hidden heroes in our own paths. And the final question remains, are we ready to break our silence? The impact of this journey transcends walls and scrawled lockers. It resonates in families, schools, and hearts willing to change. It reminds us that injustice can be rewritten when truth blooms. Each chapter invites us to rethink our beliefs about strength and vulnerability. The blade of prejudice dulls in the face of empathy's sharp edge. Victory isn't measured in applause, but in the silent shift of attitudes. Have you ever allowed yourself to be moved by a story steeped in faith and precision? If not, now is the moment to make room for that transformation. Now reflect. Who has been tending to your inner garden with patience and compassion? Where is your handkerchief of hope when words wound like blades? How might you become a gardener of courage in your own surroundings? Perhaps a simple gesture, a caring glance, or a welcoming silence is enough. As we learned, true healing emerges from consistent care. Allow yourself to see the invisible within every face around you. And use your own story to sow redemption where there's pain. Because, in the end, being true to yourself is the greatest act of courage. If this story touched your heart, share it with someone in need of hope. Subscribe to the channel and hit the bell to never miss transformative narratives. Join us in the mission to cultivate courage in every daily action. Leave a comment. Which chapter moved you the most? Hit like to strengthen this wave of empathy. Share this video with someone who deserves to be seen beyond labels. Here, every story is an invitation to stand tall until the end. Thank you for watching and for being part of this silent revolution.